and welcome back to the Broken Respawn podcast, where it's been a sudden change in plans like 3 times in a row in the last 5 minutes. So never mind. How I hope everyone is doing it well today. I am joined here today by special guest. Are you a kestrel? Are you actually a kestrel?
More of a kite, really,
yeah.
Or something rhyming with it.
Special guest, Discorp, and we're doing a little bit of a slightly on the political spectrum chat today, because it is, after all, the 4th of July, and America is currently celebrating blowing themselves up. That's what we're talking about right today.
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, cool. I'm TBSliver, and I'm going to be the very confused one in the corner, because though politics affects a lot of our everyday life, I'm also a bit of an idiot, so, you know.
Well, you came to the right... If you wanted idiots, you came to the right guy, so congratulations.
Yes. How are we doing today, Diz?
Suspected COVID, but seem to have shaken most of it off just in time for a streaming marathon. I'll do the plug later, don't worry, guys. So the polls close here in the UK at 10 p.m. So I'm looking at an imaginary watch to check it. But the polls close here at 10 p.m. local time, which is just under 2 hours away. So if you're British and you're watching, stick this in your ear holes and get down to your polling booth. And I'll be doing an all-nighter, hopefully with a couple of friends. I'm basically still trying to figure out who's going to turn up for it. Long-term friends of the D, as it were, or Michael, as some people know me, may remember way back in November 2020, there was a bit of argy-bargy in the United States of America about some 2 old dudes, and they were arguing, and there was some red and some blue. And I did like a 9.5-hour marathon covering that election, and it turned out it took them another 6 weeks to decide who'd actually won. So that was fun. We had everything. We had like the drinking games. We had the fire alarm went off half an hour before the end of the stream, which was great.
Oh dear.
Somebody was smoking weed in one of the other flats, so that usually sets the sensors off. You see, so. Yeah, but this time it's going to be even less organized. I've got a dynamic semi-finished overlay that's basically a knockoff of the BBC's. Don't tell Clive Myrie, he'll be sad. And basically we might even do like voice notes or phone-ins if we could figure out the text. As you said, TB, it's going to be a bit of a janky session today. We were talking in the green room earlier, virtual green room, with your trusty companion Kremlik, and who would join us, but he's actually probably got something similar to what I've had. So
I hope not, because that might kill him.
There's a dose of the Rona going around the UK at the moment, and people are just like, "Oh, I've got a cold." Yeah. Which, considering 4 years ago, if you tested positive for COVID, you would probably be panicking. We've come a long, long way, I think.
Yeah,
I think we're just in this. 4 years ago, if you'd said it's just the flu, 90% of the country would have wanted to have punched you in the face. Now you're right, really.
Yeah.
So,
which is good, but also not great how we ended up in this here in the first place. But
No, but we can get into that. I mean, without wanting to fly. I mean, I keep my cards very close to my chest when it comes to my political allegiances, in that I don't really have any. And
that's interesting, actually.
I don't know whether you watched that video that I actually made, because it's a bit of a drag. It's 26 minutes long. The audio wasn't 100% great because when you make a video with 48 hours of sleep deprivation and you actually have to work in between edits, because like an idiot, I didn't book the time off to finish it. You do start making a lot of silly errors. But I made a video a couple of weeks ago to encourage people to look into what parties they could vote for, explaining what the first past the post system was. I even talked about Northern Ireland for 5 minutes, and I'll tell you something about Northern Ireland. It's complicated, and they're a bunch of lads who are part of the United Kingdom. Some of them not willingly, but they're taking part today. And some of the candidates who get voted in won't actually be taking part in democracy because they don't like British democracy. They want Irish democracy, which is fair enough. But at the moment, they live in the United Kingdom, so
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's an interesting mess. I didn't actually think you were apolitical is the wrong word, but politically neutral. Possibly.
Yeah, I'm political but not politicized. I think that's the way I try to explain it to people. It's very much like my taste in sports, for example. I am actually quite a big football, that's soccer for American English speakers. But I don't actually have an allegiance. The Euro Championships are on at the moment. England have made it to the quarterfinals, and as a Welshman, I really want Switzerland to destroy England because it would be funny. But as the child of English parents, I would like England to do well. But I know for sure that if England did win the Euro Championship, they wouldn't shut up about it for 60 years because they didn't with 66 in the World Cup. I say if I sat here trying to explain my national identity, we'd waste a whole hour, which is good because we were trying to get, because you've got two usual other contributors other than Krem, right? You've got Sarin,
yeah.
Our correspondent from the Dominion of Canada. I don't think they like being called that anymore, but I think that's technically dead naming a country, but we won't go into that sort of joke.
Dominion of Canada. I didn't know it was a Dominion. It used to be a Dominion. Okay.
It used to be a Dominion, yeah. So you had like Canada, New Zealand, Australia. I think South Africa was a Dominion for a while. I think we wanted Ireland to be a Dominion when they declared independence, and then they said feck off. So we were like, okay, yeah, it's like, it's already been violent enough. We've killed enough of you, killed enough of us. We'll just take the top right-hand bit. That won't cause any problems at all. Yeah. So what do? Do I rant about... Do I redo the video in a slightly less sleep-deprived state? Do I rant about the iniquities of first past the post in determining a party-based political system? Like, no, just watch CGP Grey. He explains it all. If you don't like first past the post, he'll reinforce your opinions and he'll actually explain why he's right. But yeah, that's another one.
I looked at the maths for it because that's the way I understood it originally. Is the first past the post bit, and there is none. It's just kind of
right,
but also not, but also yes. It's a I need
to raise my hand here. I need to. Can I call you by your first name, by the way, TB?
Yes.
Or do you Okay, I can call you Tom. Sorry, I realise I just don't want to dox you, saying you live at this address in this constituency or anything. But yeah, so first past the post, I will actually make the argument for it. I'm not saying the argument is a good argument. Bear with me a second. I'm just trying to set fire to a battery. There we are. Yeah, so first past the post is a good voting system. Am I going to explain myself? Yes. It doesn't work when you have extremely cohesive national level parties. That's the problem with it. It wasn't designed for party politics. It works brilliantly if you have a representative system for areas where certain areas have representatives, which is what we do have in the UK. We have 650 constituencies. Canadian viewers will know them as ridings. American viewers will know the equivalent as districts. They're basically the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know why Canadians call them ridings. I don't know who they've been riding. They literally copied our homework, moved the system over to Canada, got themselves an elected second chamber, and went, we're Canadian, eh? And carried on with the Westminster system like nothing, like they had, oh yeah, we totally made this as our own work, like CTRL, like Control F, Control R for replace or whatever. Ridings, constituencies, district, whatever.
Because we get ridings in the UK, but it's a place like East
you'll have certain.
Yeah,
it's just a really old way of describing a particular geographical area, basically a constituency. Because you and I are constituents. If I might use a personal example, I live on the Isle of Anglesey, which is in the northwest of Wales. It's a fairly big island off the coast of the main coast of Wales. It has two permanent bridges connecting it, both of which really need rebuilding, and we need a third one. But anyway, that's a local issue. But our constituency, we're kind of a special case because each constituency in the UK it represents about 100,000 people. But there are exceptions, like I'm going to try and pronounce this, but it's going to be wrong. Na Helanian Anyar, which is the Western Isles. So if you look at the map of Britain, you look to the west of Scotland, you've got all these cool bobbly islands. They're the Western they're the Outer Hebrides or the Western Hebrides. They're like Anglesey, Ynys to use its correct name, because they've gone they've gone into endonymy now, which is another story. they don't have to have 100,000 people in them because it's a geographically very distinct area. They go, yeah, you're just one constituency because it would be stupid to merge you with somewhere else.
There's 30 of you there, 100 there, 5 of you on there, 1 of you on a boat. Okay, fuck it. You're all just your own problem.
Yeah, so like the Isle of Wight is split into 2 because basically the population there keeps growing and they've got to the stage where it's like, you guys have way too many people in you for one constituency, chop.
I'm actually surprised it's 100,000. Like, it's actually said...
It's a big island.
I'm actually surprised it said 100,000. Sorry, I'm actually surprised at the number.
Well, what you do is you get the population of the UK, which is somewhere between 65 and 70 million. I haven't really looked at those figures. And you just divide it by the number of MPs, which is 650, and you end up with about 100,000 per constituency.
Wait, so you just divided it by the number... But
yeah.
You just divided it by the number of active MPs. That's it.
Yeah.
So what if?
Yeah, it's the population of the UK is say 65 million. Quick maths, divide that by 650. That's 100,000 per constituency.
How did we end up with 650? Where did that number come from?
Yeah. It's just evolved over time. Yeah, it's just evolved over time.
It happens to be 650 employed at the time when we did that, and now there's
like
more.
when Blair got in '97, because I basically couldn't concentrate at work earlier this week, so I had a little old tablet which is possibly older than some of your youngest viewers.
Is that the chance of Lynx 8?
It's Nexus 7. Google/Acer Nexus 7. You've got one.
Snap.
Ooh, friend. 2012 edition, Wi-Fi only. Brilliant.
2012 Wi-Fi only. I'm currently planning to install Linux.
I don't know the name of the software it's running, but it works. It's like it's jailbroken. It's not jailbroken. It's rooted to all hell, but it works. It even runs iPlayer and ICVX. Isn't that cool?
I think I might have trouble with mine because I think I may have accidentally updated it and it won't, and I can't root it now.
You can do some proper low-level hacking to the Nexus 7, and you can basically delete all the partitions, reset the partitions, and make the storage section bigger. It's because I've done it 3 or 4 times.
Drop me a link outside the stream.
Right. Yeah, because I can tell you that the code name for this is Flow, FLO, Fox Lima Oscar.
Okay.
And there's a version of the firmware that's like really low. It's lower than like the OS. That's Flow X, so Fox Lima Oscar X-ray. And if you redo the partitions on this to be Flow X compatible, you can use like Lineage OS runs on this. That's what I've got on this. I was trying to remember.
I was actually looking at on the complete tangent on that particular tablet.
We are winging it, mate.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I was looking at something called Post Market OS, which is a full Linux distro.
Ooh, clever.
Yeah. So I was looking at that going for the simple reason of I could do with the tablet in general, but that thing is so old that I'm not going to ever use it as a proper tablet ever again.
I get it. Yeah.
But it's a good little development machine for
be surprised. ARM. Yeah, well, when I made the politics video, which I'm sure you'll drop a link to at some point, hint, plug.
Hint,
570 views it's had so far, which is pretty good considering it was a knockoff of the German guy's video, but he promoted it. Like 2/3 of the views I got were from his followers, which was thank you, Lucas, if you're ever watching this, by the way. Cheers, mate.
Drop him a link.
Yeah. I used this as my autocue base. It wasn't an autocue, it just had like the vague script that I had. I had this massive Google Doc. It's like 7,000 words, 3 drafts on 1 page.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, so I'd be there like this, like 5 a.m. on the Tuesday, the day the video had to go out at midday. Like, what have I got to do now? Shit, it's the Scots. Like, yeah, I made loads of mistakes in the Scotland section because I was so. It feels like being hungover, and I've not drunk alcohol in over 20 years. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so mate, I use it for that. I use it for like if I'm at work because I use my home computer for my work at the moment. I work remotely for one of the NHS trusts in London. You don't really need to know the details, but I work remotely for them. So, the tablet, to be honest, considering I bought it from like an Argos about 10 years ago. It was on sale because they were trying to clear the stock because it was a year or two old. But yeah, it's done me so well. It's had so many repartitions and reinstallations, but it's just sitting there. There's like one dead pixel that's always been there, and the screen's like 16 by 10 because that was still a thing back then.
And it's got massive margins. Massive borders.
I like that. I like the bezels.
You can grip the side of the screen and not accidentally press it. Unlike modern phones where it's like, where do I grip it? Yeah. Like the filming. I mean, it was all headshot filming for that video, but it was all done on my mid-range Samsung smartphone. I just filmed because it's got a 4K 30 frames video camera. So I thought, with my London job, actually, it worked out coincidentally useful, where I was down in London, I think the first full week of June, because I was down there from like the Tuesday night to Sunday, because A, I was meeting a friend, and B, I had to do 3 days work down in the office. So just I think it was like the Thursday evening, I just said, sod it, can I say the F word on your stream? I can't remember. Yeah, you fucking can.
Yeah. Okay, so okay.
It's past the first 5 minutes, we're fine.
Yeah,
YouTube will never record this deep in.
So rather than so I work in an office in Leytonstone. If anyone knows London, it's like northeast, East London. It's near the Central Line anyway, the hospital. But anyway, I decided, right, sod it. So I just got on a bus and a train and a bus and a train or whatever, tubed it all the way to Westminster, walked across Westminster Bridge, and got this beautiful viewpoint of the Palace of Westminster, and thought, right, and I just stood there with my little gimbal, because I've got a little phone gimbal, like a little knobhead that I am, and just plonked it on this side thing and just held it there for a couple of minutes, trying to self-stabilize because there was a bit of a breeze that evening, and that was all that effort, and I got like five minutes of footage of which I used 5 seconds, and I got loads of good photographs which I used for the base of a thumbnail as well. So so it just goes to show that like sometimes you do a lot of talking and it takes up a lot of time, but it's the little moments where you've got to put loads of effort in and the payoff might not be amazing, but I thought it worked. And because I use Epidemic Sound, because for some reason I still subscribe to them, even though that video is the first video I've made in about a year, I was able to get like free music from it. So God Save the King. I have to remember it's called God Save the King. I know Liz died nearly 2 years ago, but it's King, not Queen.
Yeah. Well, when it was recorded, it was the Queen. It was God Save the Queen.
Yeah. I got what is it? I got the tunes for the Conservative section, the Lib Dems section, the Reform section, because I use Rule Britannia for them because they're like
that kind of fits,
they're quite a patriotic company. Well, they I don't want to, like I said, I'm not going to fly my head on the mast, but the Reform Party are quite nostalgic with their nationalism. They would like a return to sort of a pseudo-imperial stage of the UK. I'm not going to denounce their core
feet
beliefs.
and inches, pounds and ounces, that sort of level.
Like I would be happy with dual measurements on things like but they do that anyway. You buy 2 liters of milk and it'll say, it's like 3.5 pints or whatever. It's like, all right, that's fine. But you still go to a pub. You don't order 568 milliliters of beer, do you? You order a pint because we have a traditional measurement system that we use.
Because when you go to Europe and buy a half, you get 500 mil.
It's a 500
but you
mil.
buy a litre, which when you buy a litre, you're like, wow, that was cheap. Oh god.
Yeah, there's like we're not the only civilization that's done this. Actually, I know this is hugely tangential, but China has a traditional unit of measurement called the li. A li is about a third of a traditional mile, and depending on who you speak to, but they have a metric li, which is literally 500 meters because it's about the same as a li, and they're just like, that's the metric li. We're using that now. But they use the metric system in China anyway because they're like, this works.
Which, ironically, that makes sense, because 600 meters to the mile.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. So it's about 500 meters in length. But yeah, they use li. Like we have a league, which is 4 miles, I think, and nobody uses that. Unless you're quoting Tennyson or you're watching horse racing. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Krem's threatening to unsub because we're having having tangential issues.
Mr. Tangent Man's
So we're here to talk about UK politics. I've been rambling for 20 minutes. So do you want me to lead or do you want me to ask? Because I went off on a tangent with the music. I did cheat a little. I used very short clips I kind of got away with on YouTube, like the theme tune for Captain Planet. There was no other tune I could think of that was better for the Green Party. I should have done the Gonna Take Pollution Down to Zero line, but
Oh god, that was that's actually a great one for that. It was just you saying Epidemic Sounds. My subscription for that renewed last month. I haven't used any of their stuff in over a year.
Yeah, they've put the price up by like 50%, a cheeky twats.
I was wondering where the 100 quid went. I was like, shit.
Yeah, I think people will be feeling that way about subbing to my Twitch because this stream that I'm doing now will be the first or later, 9:30, twitch.tv/MichaelDursley. Hint. Will be at 9:30 tonight, so in about an hour's time, will be my first stream since the 15th of April when I had a game of Helldivers 2 for a couple of hours with some mates.
Wow. You've been busy then.
Well, yeah, I've had some personal changes in the last few months, so I started dating somebody, and she's absolutely lovely, but the gamer part of me is like, well, she does get in the way of one of the things I love doing, which is gaming, because that's quite time consuming as well. But I'm figuring out the work-life balance thing, so
fair.
But yeah, no, she is wonderful. If you are watching, but yeah, anyway, So what was I saying? Yeah, so with the so we've got a UK election on. It got declared, I think, about 6 weeks ago, or more or less.
Very recently. I literally looked at it today. I went, oh, it's the voting date. That came around fucking quick.
Yeah, I know. Did you, right, out of interest, Tom, did you vote in person or did you post a vote?
In person. I won't say how close the polling station is, but I could probably throw a rock at it.
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned actually, because mine's about 5 minutes walk away. It's in funnily enough, I live in a market town in Anglesey. I'm not going to say which one, but when you say market town on Anglesey, if you're local, you'll know which one, because there aren't many of them. But anyway, the voting station is 5 minutes away. It's next to a beautiful church. Absolutely stunning church right next to a major like a really big nature reserve. It's beautiful. Went in, there's like 4 middle-aged Welsh ladies. It's always any polling station in Wales, it's always 4 middle-aged Welsh ladies who go hiya. But this time it's like hiya, that. You've got your ID. Yeah, so I took my passport because it's my best ID. So yeah, and I just said hello ladies, did a bit of bilingual banter because I speak enough Welsh to get a bit of banter out of the way in Welsh. People always like that around here, even though I'm not culturally native, as it were. I'm still Welsh. And just said thank you, and because my street has a bilingual name, they took a bit of extra time trying to find it, because I'm like, wait, is it a Welsh name or an English name? I'm like, shit, okay, doing that, and then it just went around the corner of this weird little stand thing, put the X next to the guy or girl whose credentials I thought were the least worst, and then walked off.
That's what this election has turned into. Which of you lot are the least worst party?
Damage. Yeah,
and it's not even least worst. Going back to the first past the post thing we had earlier, it being good for reasonably local stuff and representative areas. Yes. I don't vote. You can't vote that way at the moment.
No, you vote. What you vote for is, really speaking, you look at the 2 political blocs in the UK, which are split up between various parties. You have the predominant Labour Party on the left. They're a centre-left party, really. They're barely left-wing at all. But then you have the right, like the Conservatives are really weird because economically they're kind of all over the place. Ideologically, like socially, they're really like conservative compared to most of the other parties. But then you have Reform, who are even more socially conservative. And anyway, but then you've got the Liberal Democrats, who are economically are bang in the middle, but like socially, they are way to the left. They are very, very socially liberal and progressive, which is great, but it's kind of confusing.
To be honest, I didn't realise they were meant to be that far to they were that way, because I always thought that they were right of centre, just right of centre. Yeah. That was probably them shooting themselves in the foot.
Economically.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, overall, because we talk about. I mean, there's a whole section. There's a whole section in my video on this. Christ. But yeah, basically, we think of the original political spectrum comes from. To summarise what I said, the original political spectrum comes from France, old pre or early revolutionary France, where basically they had a big national assembly. It's like, shit, the country's on fire. We don't know what to do. What are we going to do? Right, we'll get all the plebs in because they're the ones kicking off and not happy. We'll get all the cool, wealthy, and religious people in. All right, so the cool and wealthy religious people think everyone else smells, so they're sitting on the right-hand side of a guy who's presiding over this over this National Assembly, and they're all clustered there, and all the plebs are sitting on the left, because the right-hand side's also supposed to be the favoured side of royalty, because if you're somebody's right-hand man,
yeah, okay,
that's like a really old metaphor, but yeah,
wow.
that's it. Whereas the plebs all sat on the left, and we're like sitting there stinking of like poo and stuff like that, or whatever, but that's where it comes
also
from.
The Joker.
Left-wing means socialist, of the people, poor, essentially, or commoner, and then right-wing means noble, business, money, power, usually, but that's another story. But yeah, that's where it comes from. But the problem is that's kind of been morphed into the social progressiveness and conservative sort of terminology, and I blame America for this, because America is bloody annoying, because they've corrupted the word liberal. Liberal does not mean socially liberal, it means liberally economic. The Liberal Democrats are an economically liberal party, but they're also socially liberal in the American system.
Yeah, shows how badly explained this is as well, though, because like you and I probably went through similar times of upbringing, schooling and stuff like that. You've learned most of this after university and stuff, didn't you? Or during university? I can't remember what you did, of course.
No, I'll tell. I will. In UK schools, your teachers are supposed to be completely apolitical. Yeah. I did GCSE history. This is back in the late 90s, so. Yeah, we could do like a wobbly transition thing, but we won't. I had an absolutely brilliant history teacher who basically in one lesson, I think she even swore, she said, you know what, she was trying to explain politics and history, and she just said, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do the political spectrum. And she explained it perfectly. She mapped the British parties, the main British, and because we were in Wales, we did the Welsh nationalists as well, who are well known for being quite left-wing. She mapped them onto the spectrum. Everyone was like, oh, why are the Conservatives all the way over there? She's like, yeah, because like there aren't any other major parties that represent them. This is the late 90s now. Like UKIP were like like barely a thing. Farage was just starting to beat his drum about European Union and stuff, and people weren't really listening at that point. Blair had just fucking swept to victory in 1997. Things are only going to get better. Blaring out, get it? And yeah, the world was very different back then. We didn't even have Twitter or Facebook. You know what? The world was better back then.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Well, to be fair, we don't have Twitter anymore, and Facebook's on the way out. So we're about where we were before. Hang on a minute. And Labour are about to possibly have a landslide victory. Hang on. History is repeating itself.
History is repeating itself. Yeah, if it turns out that Keir Starmer can play the guitar, we're money in.
Oh, shit.
Because that's the thing, like... Okay, so we had great history to explain the political spectrum. So I have been politically quite aware since probably before my teens. Like one of my earliest political memories is of the Conservative leadership election in, I think, late 1990, where Thatcher quit because basically her whole party were like, you're shit, you've been here too long, get rid. We won't even go into Thatcher. I brushed over Thatcherism in my video. There's a whole hour of talking about Thatcherism. It's I have my complex.
Thoughts, and some of them are
Most
very
of
funny.
Your viewers are probably left of centre and don't like it, but she's... in my personal opinion, I think she would have made a superb head of state. But I think as a head of government, she was more controversial. And I'm talking as a kid who grew up on a council estate to working class parents who did not prosper under Thatcher. I can tell you that from childhood experience.
Yeah.
But like you have to, if you want to do stuff in politics, you either go in balls to the wall with your own biases, or you step back and go, right, why did this happen? It's the same with like, you know, like if you've got left-wing leanings, for example, or if you're socially progressive, you still have to look at reform and their predecessor parties, Brexit, UKIP, even the referendum party that was before that was a one-issue weird party, James Goldsmith and all that. But you have to look at it dispassionately. And why did this happen? And everyone goes, oh, everyone I know voted for Remain. We get on Brexit. Why not get on Brexit? Everyone I know voted for Remain. Yeah, because most of your friends will have similar political views to you. That's why you're friends with them. It doesn't mean they're the only people in the universe. There's large groups of people. You know, I will say I voted Remain. I thought that staying in the European Union was the lesser of two evils. And I thought that the referendum was needed because there was pressure building in the political system that was going to cause Britain loads of problems. But the problem was that when we did vote for it and we voted to leave, we half-assed Brexit. We didn't do it right. It's like
it's
or
the,
as
the,
I yeah, as yeah.
I mean, the thing
As
is,
I
well,
say,
I also voted Remain, and my main thing was we can do more on the inside than we can from the outside.
Yeah, you're better off pissing in the tent than you are standing outside pissing into the tent. So, yeah,
because now
pissing
they're
out of the
just
tent,
now obviously they're just fucking ignoring us, which is exactly
well,
right.
We're just annoyed. The thing is, we used to be like this annoying. We used to be this annoying part of Europe that never really agreed with everything that was going on, and now we're just this really annoying neighbour that keeps turning the music up late at night. So that's what we are to them. It's just we've got nukes, which is awkward, but yeah. But yeah. Anyway, the vote. Okay, so we've got the vote. So Sunak called the vote here 6 weeks ago. Rishi Sunak, current Prime Minister, he is still the Prime Minister. So even though he's not an MP, because the UK currently has no MPs, technically they all lost their jobs on the 30th of May. But him and the cabinet are technically still the government, because if, say, like Britain got invaded tomorrow by like evil Russians or whatever, some stupid Call of Duty style shite, they would literally be the government. They would have to sort everything out, and then everybody else would sort of chip in. And but he called he's a single MP. So one thing, so he called the election probably because the theory is that there's a lot of bad economic data coming up on the horizon and during the summer and the autumn, like with the immigration issue, because there's a lot of illegal migration coming in from over the channel. You've got very, very high immigration figures at the moment, and that's pissing half the country off. And the other half are like, no, this is great. And it's like, well, it's actually more complicated than that, guys.
It's never that easy.
It's never that simple.
About it.
If you like immigration or you hate immigration, it's like, it's not either side. It's sort of some murky area in the middle. The economy's been stagnant for decades, let's face it. Britain isn't a productive country anymore because we just sell each other insurance.
We are a services country after all.
Yeah,
that's something economy, I do remember.
Which is all well and good, but India's like 20 times our population and does it more cheaply. So we've got to figure out a better way of doing it. Anyway, so he's called the election. So what happens after that? You have the big campaign, and everyone thought, oh, maybe the Conservatives will close the lead in the polls, because Labour were miles ahead in the polls, because people were annoyed. 14 years of a government. There's been a few crises along the way, like the ongoing austerity thing. You had you had COVID, of course. And then post-COVID, you've had the Ukraine war. You've had the collapse of the Boris Johnson government. You had the 49 days of Liz Truss. The whole lettuce thing was quite puerile, but it's also sadly
hilarious.
What she's going to. Yeah, because it was a tabloid or it was
Daily
unserious.
Mail. Was it Daily Mail or Daily Star?
Daily Star.
Daily Star.
Yeah.
One of those tabloids.
So explain to our non-British viewers, the Daily Star is a tabloid newspaper. So it's and it's known for being fairly unserious. Like you buy it because there's boobies on the inside cover, and they make really fun jokes at the expense of politicians and famous people. That's basically what they do. But their headlines are brilliant. And they decided, because Liz Truss's premiership, as it were, was so unstable and so silly, they decided to do a live stream of a lettuce next to a clock, I think it was, or a picture of something. And the lettuce had googly eyes and a little wig. And it was like one of their writers.
It started off without the wig and all the googly eyes.
They
just put a lettuce and a clock in front of a YouTube stream, and then will
Liz Truss outlast the lettuce? Because they did it like 7 days before she quit. So the shelf life of the lettuce is an iceberg lettuce is about 10 days. She didn't outlast the lettuce because they knew she was going to have to quit. Because the thing that Liz Truss had tried to do, page 3 is no longer a thing, says Krem in the chat. Not in the Sun. I think the Daily Star still do the topless ladies thing, but I don't read it, so I wouldn't know. But anyway, so Liz Truss, the problem with Liz Truss, or what she got wrong, was that she's quite radical economically. She wanted to vastly lower taxes in the UK to basically get the engine of the economy going, get people, get the money flowing better, as it were, and basically try and boost the economy through lower government investment, lower public services, better private investment, better private services. It's the right-wing ideal of the small state, low taxes regime. The problem was, she said she was going to reduce the taxes. She didn't explain what she was going to do to reduce the spending. So you had a big hole in her budget that said, well, who's going to pay for all this? Because you still want to fund the NHS, you still want to fund defense, education, pensions, etc., etc. And she didn't have an answer. And her chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, were like, oh yeah, we've got this map, it's going to come from growth. And it's like, well, the
Magical
global
money
markets
tree.
don't agree. So yeah, so I mean, you could argue that like British fiscal policy shouldn't be determined by a bunch of money men in the city, but unfortunately, that's how the world works. You can't bankrupt the country and then expect just to make it up later, you know.
Yeah,
But Krem's got the perfect example there. She wanted to restart the engine, the British engine, or the economy, the engine of the British economy, and she ended up flooding the engine because it didn't work. So we get funding, So that was her mistake. And then Rishi Sunak, who had been her second place competitor in the Conservative leadership. I'll come on to how prime ministers work in a second. He got voted in by default because they were like, look, we don't want another leadership competition because we've just, we had one with Boris Johnson. That went really well. And then we've had one with, we've had Liz Truss, and she was amazing. So they inaugurated him. So the thing is, one of the big things that came out, like when Boris Johnson was basically being turfed out in the summer of 2022, a lot of people were quite frustrated because he's quite a personality. Because 2 years ago, because he's quite a big personality and because he's essentially a presidential figure in a prime ministerial system. Because he's very charismatic. A lot of people in the 2019 election, the dead of winter election, I was sat in his seat watching the BBC all night. I remember that night. A lot of people would have gone to vote for his party, the Conservative Party, thinking, I'm voting for Boris Johnson. The thing is, unless you lived in the constituency of Uxbridge and South Ruislip, it's on the Central Line, if you know London, you didn't vote for Boris Johnson, you voted for his team. You voted for one of his representatives, like the incumbent MP here. She's not the MP at the moment, and she's probably not going to be in 2.5 hours. Virginia Crosby came out of nowhere on Anglesey to win the constituency here. Because Anglesey, for the last 20, 30 years, Ynysmore, I should call it by its constituency, Ynysmore, Isle of Anglesey, for the last 20, 30 years has been like a toss-up sort of between Labour and Plaid Cymru, who are the Welsh nationalist party. They're like even though they were founded beforehand, they're essentially a knockoff of the Scottish nationalists, but it's more complicated because Welsh nationalism is centred on linguistic identity, and let's not even go into it. But anyway, Labour and Plaid, it used to be a Plaid seat, and then Labour took it, I think, during the Blair years, had it for a very long time, and then the Conservatives took it off them in 2019 because the Conservatives came in and essentially Labour and Plaid split the vote, so the so-called progressive or left-wing votes was split almost evenly between the two candidates, and the Conservatives snuck in and won by a relative small majority. And the thing is, like, speaking honestly now, I've met the woman once, Virginia Crosby, her name is. As a constituency MP, she's tried her best, but her problem is she's playing for the blue team and everyone's sick of the blue team. And that's why she's probably going to lose her job tonight. And it's quite sad if you think about it, because somebody who's genuinely tried their best, but people just don't like her boss. Basically, people don't like the people she works for.
Which
so no matter how she could have
part of the problem. I actually when you were saying first past the post, and I'm going to keep going back to that one just because it was a good point that stuck in my mind. The bit that I think. I'll let you get your headphones back on because
No, carry. I kept you on one ear. It's all right.
Yeah, okay.
It's just I am still running a temperature despite the paracetamol.
Oh, so, goody.
Carry on. Yeah.
But the thing that I've always found, and I've held since I first came across the first past the post thing in terms of how applying to things,
how it works.
Roughly, I still don't 100% understand it. All I know is it doesn't work for us. But it doesn't. But it would work in a different way. What I'd rather is I had two votes. I want to vote for who handles locally and who handles nationally. I want to be able to say I like this guy's policies, no matter what. Guy, girl, they, them, whatever. I like their policies. I like what they're going to do. They're actually going to help with this. They've been doing this and that. The problem is they're wearing green, or they're wearing blue, or they're wearing a Union Jack, or they're wearing red. Yeah. I don't give a shit. At the local level, all I care is that basically security, safety, all that sort of stuff, and the stuff that actually matters locally is handled locally. And is handled in the way that works for the local place. There's no point someone down in London dealing with something up in Lancaster. This is why the Labour candidate, ironically, in Lancaster while I was there, she was amazing. I accidentally nearly knocked her out with my bike once. I was just walking along, but I've got a Brompton, so I was just walking along swinging my bike, and I just turned around like I normally do. I nearly clocked her with it because she was picking something up on the floor.
Tom's secretly a conservative. He's just not telling us. Right.
But no, she was absolutely great. She you could tell the moment she came into I want to say power. That's the wrong term, but you know,
came into office.
Thank you. Came into office in Lancaster. You could tell the difference after a couple of months. Like the place was actually doing really well.
She
is local to there. I don't know about the person I've ended up voting for here, but the problem is here, I'm in the same one of I am voting based on who I want in power down in Westminster. You're
voting on a national level, yeah. So you might have heard of tactical voting. It's the idea that if you've got one person in a constituency who's the MP or who's the incumbent there, and you want to get rid of them, and there's other people jostling to try and beat them. With the first past the post system, because you want to get one X against one name, you want to really, everybody who hates that one guy, you want to concentrate all the votes against them to one candidate, ideally, so they can beat them. So that's what tactical voting is. Whereas because we have the party politics system in the UK, what you have is a lot of strategic voting. So like you said, people who agree with policies on a national level, even though, you know, you might live in, for example, if you live in an inner city constituency in Liverpool, Labour are going to win. Like their majorities are like 60, 70%. It's obscene how many votes Labour
centre of Manchester.
But you understand it. Like the history of Liverpool and the history of Manchester, sort of very, very old industrialised cities. But it's like, you know, once you read the history, you understand why people are sort of locked into that voting. But it does cause the concept. I don't agree with the concept of a wasted vote. I think every vote's counted, so it counts. It's just that you might live in a constituency where 60% of the people are going to vote for candidate X. So candidate X is going to win anyway. But your vote it wasn't wasted. It just didn't win, or it didn't have a chance of winning. It still counted. The problem is that vote doesn't count on a national level because all the vote, basically the candidate winning in your constituency,
the constituency rather than your individual
it's
vote.
600. It's first past the post is 650 in the UK. It's 650 separate races, but it determines the colour of the parliament that's elected from it. So you might have, for example, like you look at the polls, the election polls in the UK. Labour are going to get about 40% of a national vote, but they're going to get something like 60 to 70% of the seats. So a lot of people would argue that's not fair. But the thing is, it's just that their party are more popular in 60 to 70% of the seats than any other party. That's the system's working as intended. It's just because national politics is determined by party politics, it doesn't work on a numerical level, even though it works as designed. Party politics breaks first past the post, and this is why I prefer the split. My idea is of a split, a two votes.
I did like what was it? There was analysis done because they do actually count the number of votes for each party. And I think it was the last major election, not the joke one that that it feels like back in 2019, Boris's election.
That was the last. That was the last general election. Well, that's the thing.
Was the last major one. It was the one that afterwards they put to referendum. Was it a referendum for first past the post, if I remember rightly?
No, as alternative voting, and that was in 2011.
Yeah, but they did actually look at. I think someone did an analysis of first past the post versus if every vote counted. Yeah. So, I know. You're talking about instant runoff. Yeah. You're talking about instant runoff. Yeah. Well, I don't know what it's called, but it was literally just like all the votes for Labour, all the votes for Conservative, all the votes for thing. And I think what changed was Conservatives lost 2 votes, lost 2 chairs. Green gained a chair and UKIP got a chair, and that was the difference.
Yeah,
it was something. It was like looking. It was like, fine, cool, okay. Yeah, so yes, UKIP got a seat, but also they're going to get screamed at. Let's be fair.
If you've got 12 to 15% of the population who believe in a particular ideology, you would think they would have 12 to 15% of a representation in a given parliament, right? This is what UKIP actually went through in 2015. At probably the height of their national political power. I mean, their apotheosis was 2016 when the Brexit referendum happened. Yeah. But in 2015, they won about 12 to 13% of the votes in the UK. I think it was just under 13%. I had to do a graph of it. It was hilarious. I was trying to do it when I was talking about proportional representation. Well, first past the post in the video that I made, I was making a graph and I was using OpenOffice. And OpenOffice is a buggy piece of shit that kept crashing on me. So I ended up getting rid of it and getting LibreOffice last minute, but it worked then. But yeah, the graphs just shows it. It's like UKIP got just under 13% of the national votes. They won one constituency
because
Douglas
there's just
Carswell
so many of them
Clacton,
everywhere.
Actually.
Yeah, there's so many of them everywhere. It just so happened just there was enough of them above everything else. There's a bigger group of them, and yeah, it's just. I think the other thing was as well. I think it also leveled the vote out between. I think actually the other bit that happened was the number of Labour and Conservative seats didn't change total, but it was a 50-50, a perfect 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, because Labour will get about 40% of the vote, but will get 60 to 70% of the seats and 100% of the power. So they'll have a monopoly on power, but not a monopoly on the mandate. Whereas you will have the Liberal Democrats, who usually get shafted by first past the post. Although this time round, it's actually going to level out.
It's going to be a bit more interesting.
Yeah, because they're basically challenging a load of rural Tory seats, Conservative seats down in the south. And then you've got Reform, who were running over 20% in some of the polls in the last couple of weeks.
The polls have been hilarious.
If they get 5 seats, it'll be nearly miraculous for Reform. And yet the support for them is very, very broad, but it's not concentrated. Yeah. So Farage is probably going to win Clacton. If he does, 8th time lucky. Well done. But
taking his time to get hit in the face with the milkshake.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, don't get me started about political violence, because the milkshake thing is so stupid. It's like, it's funny because it's milkshake, but it's like, if you had somebody who had worse intentions, Farage would be disfigured or dead.
Yeah,
and we've had two MPs murdered in the last 8 years. We had Jo Cox, who was murdered during the Brexit campaign. That was fucking awful. She got murdered by some right-wing nutbag. And then David Amos got slaughtered by a bloody Islamist nutbag with a machete. It was awful. Like,
I don't remember that one.
It was nasty. It was just after COVID started dying down, and he basically this guy walked into his constituency office and went for him with a machete and killed him. Jesus. Fucking terrible. But yeah, where it just goes to show, the thing is, you have to clamp that. You can't be throwing. Well, you shouldn't be throwing milkshake at people in the first place. But if you do that, if you make that a more common form of protest, you're going to have an escalation. People are going to be doing worse than a flipping Five Guys salted caramel milkshake. Could be battery acid. Yeah. So, that'd be awful. But anyway, we've gone off track. So proportional representation. There's good arguments for it. Like I said, first past the post works great, but is broken by party politics. In the US, the founding fathers basically said we need to ban political parties. I think George Washington was a big fan of that idea. Like, don't have parties, just have people representing their areas and just leave it at that. But the formation of political parties in the democratic political system is inevitable. So you've got to account for it in your political system. America hasn't. Their version of first past the post is even more balked than ours is.
I don't want to know what's going on right now. I've heard it's a bit fucked.
Well, if we want to talk about them, Joe Biden has Alzheimer's dementia. I would be willing to put money on that being his diagnosis. It's so obvious. He's early stage, but he is losing it.
Yeah,
and he needs to be replaced.
I saw something today that that literally, I think, was a quote of him if he screwed up. Something like that. I don't know.
No, he didn't screw up. He was having an off day. And the thing is, if you're president, you need to not have off days.
Yeah.
And if you're president and you're in your 80s, you're going to be having more and more of them.
Ironically, it's still on my feed. Yeah. The problem is that one thing has hit a random person in the UK on their Google feed. That's it. And it's just the actual title is from the Financial Times, of all places.
FT are all right, yeah.
Yeah, Joe Biden says he screwed up in debate as he fights to save candidacy. That's the title. I've not actually read the thing, but I just remember that it's like he said he screwed up, and rightly so. He probably did, because I hear that debate went very badly for both sides. To be fair, but badly for him in a way that wasn't good at all. Because
Britain's going through a bit of flux at the moment, but America uses first past the post and uses a first past the post complicated first past the post system for their presidential election with the electoral college and stuff like that. First past the post naturally polarizes to two dominant parties, and America has been locked in that two-party system for probably since the Civil War, to be honest. People forget the Republicans freed the slaves, not the Democrats. There we go. But so I've got about 10, 15, maybe run on to 20 minutes left, so I don't mind overrunning a little bit if we do.
That's fine.
But so as I said, when we're electing the government in the UK, if you're the person who will run the government will typically be the leader or the leader of the party within the government that's from the largest party, because you don't just win automatically. You literally go, right, I've got this many seats. The other parties have that many seats. I have a majority of seats. Right, I'm off to see the king. Hey, Charlie, can I have the government? And Charlie goes, oh, yes, actually. And then that's a really bad Charles III impression.
Close enough.
But that's the thing. Like, our king is, like, on a realistic level, he has no power. On a technical level, he has all the power. He could literally tomorrow go, that election was a complete sham. We're doing another one. And technically, the country should just go, okay, and we should do it. But
if he did it,
probably lose his job in his
mess.
head if he did.
It would be
if he did it, we would be a republic within a month. But that's another story. But it's that if there is a complete, like, Boris Johnson tried to game the system in 2019 because Parliament was clogged up and he didn't have a proper majority. What he needed to do was call an election, but he didn't want to do it. He wanted to just shove the Brexit deal through. It was like, mate, just call an election. So he tried to fuck around with this thing called prorogation, which is a complex way of calling off Parliament so Cabinet can do all the decision making. But even people on his side were too pissed off with it. Yeah, people were too pissed off with it on his own side, so it ended up not happening, and he called an election instead.
I was going to say,
which, funnily enough, he won.
Possibly went to him.
Yeah, she probably, because that's the thing. One thing people don't realize: the Prime Minister typically meets the monarch once every week, usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday,
something like that.
And like it's like, you know, because that was it. Like Liz Truss, her first meeting with Queen Elizabeth was 2 days before she passed away, and the one photo of their meeting that got public, you could see like all these bruises on the Queen's arm. She'd been cannulated basically, and she was really unwell. So, but like the fact that she was like 97 when she died, and she was still like, oh, you know, there's that horrible meme joke of like, oh, the Queen, you know, I don't have much time for the Queen, but meeting Liz Truss and immediately dying out of spite gets you a lot of respect. It's just poor old Liz Truss, no matter how stupid or how foolish or how destructive you think she was, it's not good to be the butt of that many jokes, I'll have to say. Yeah. So if you're British, you've got just over an hour to get your ass to the polling booths.
Go vote. I don't care who, just go vote.
I
do care
honestly,
slightly, but I do care you vote.
Yeah, I would rather you vote for my team, but XYZ, yeah. So like, I'm pretty sure, like my girlfriend has my girlfriend has just messaged me to said I've just went to vote. She's only ever voted in one election before. Yeah. So you know, she's only a little bit younger than me, and I'm 40. So
it's not protest votes, but you can spoil your ballot, and it does count. Yeah, as well.
Yeah, that's they count. They say they. Aha. So. When in my video, there's a bit that I wanted to elaborate on it, but I didn't get a screenshot of a news article in time. But there's a talk when you're voting in a first past the post one vote or plurality voting system. You put usually an X next to the name of an unambiguous mark next to the name of the person you want to vote for, and people will typically put an X. You can put a tick. You can draw a penis. It has been proven in British elections. I think in 2015. There was an election in, I want to say Montgomery, sure it might have been Brecon. It was in Powys anyway, so sort of central eastern Wales near the English border. And the Conservative candidate received a vote which had to be triple checked by loads of election officers to determine whether it was a valid vote. And the person who'd voted, who obviously remains anonymous because we have secret balloting in the UK, had drawn a phallus next to the Conservative Party's name. Was he protesting against the Conservative, or was he saying he was the least worst option? it was an unambiguous mark. It doesn't have to be an X. You should draw an X to completely remove unambiguous, to completely remove ambiguity. But you can draw a penis.
Yeah.
And if you just draw a penis and it's in the box, it's a vote. So
make sure you draw more than one.
Don't draw a penis. Don't do it. If you draw more than one penis in more than one box, it's a spoiled paper. It's another thing. My argument is that we should have a none of the above option, and if none of the above wins, then the election for that constituency should be rerun. That's my workaround on a low level for first past the post. If more people are actively disinterested in the candidates in a constituency, as in people will go to vote to say none of them,
it would probably get any of the options voting.
You should rerun it. You should be like, well, that hasn't worked. Rerun it and see if they do any better next time.
Yeah.
But maybe that's too much. To be honest, first past the post needs fixing anyway, but we won't go into that.
Yeah.
So we've only got, like I said, we've got about 10 minutes before I've got to put my suit on and pretend to be.
Wear a suit.
I'm going to be wearing a suit. I could get it for you, but I'd have to run and run behind this green screen. There's no point.
Whatever.
But yeah, I was going to have it hanging here, but I couldn't get the clothes horse to fit in the bloody office. But yeah, how can I put this? The poll. So what will happen is that your big TV channels, so BBC, ITV, Sky, I think Channel 4 will do an all-nighter as well. They're doing it with a couple of former UK politicians, Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart, are going to be part of that team because they've got their own podcast and they're really in with Channel 4, so they're basically moonlighting for them tonight. They'll do all-night broadcasts, and the broadcasts will be like 12, 15 hours long. I'm not going to keep up for that long. I can do all-nighters. I'm not doing an all-nighter and an all-dayer. Girlfriend will kill me, for one thing. But what will happen is at 10 o'clock, when Big Ben goes bong, bong, I love bong, public domain, by the way, if you can find it, because Parliament have kind of hidden it in their archives, but the Big Ben bong is actually public domain. Fun fact.
Almost like you can go out there and record it going off.
That's the one. So Big Ben will go bong, and at that point, they will be allowed to reveal what's called an exit poll. So the BBC, ITV, and Sky have all collaborated to do. I think they've worked with. I think it's YouGov. I can't remember, but one of the big polling companies, where like there's about 130 odd polling stations around the country selected for demographic reasons to get a broad and very accurate picture of the country. And they basically ask people coming out, like, who did you vote for? Here's a fake ballot paper. Would you vote again for the people you voted for? So that they can get an indication of who's voted where. And then they can use all sorts of complicated maths and historical and statistical assumptions to come up with a very close replica of what they think the result's going to be. The last exit poll got it right, so within about 5 or 10 seats.
Wow.
So we will probably know, well, let's be fair, Labour are going to cream it this time. It's going to be... It's good in Holborn and St Pancras. It's going to be jizz central in the Starmer household. That's what I'm saying.
I see a majority.
Pretty crude, actually, but
the rumours of a supermajority, maybe not.
Now, I'm not. As I said, I have no overt political leanings, but the concept of a supermajority does not exist in British politics. There's no such thing. If you have a parliamentary majority of one, you still have a majority. It doesn't fucking matter if you have a majority of 300.
It's bluster, isn't it?
No such thing. It's basically it is the party quoting the idea of a supermajority, are trying to scare their wavering voters into turning up on election day. Apparently, from what I've seen on social media, and I haven't seen it much because I've been buried in JavaScript trying to get this stupid bloody overlay working. There's still functions that don't work properly on it, and I'm having to manually import JSON stuff. So it's all as usual, the Disley jank. I've left it too late. But anyway.
Ready for next
it
time.
Looks good, though. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's anyway, the point I'm trying to make is the exit poll will probably be a fairly accurate representation of what's going to happen. Lots of local stories, like for example, most of the models that are being used by the polling companies for predictions, they don't do well with independent parties or smaller parties. Yeah. So, for example, there's a constituency in London called Islington North. It's in a leafy-ish district of London. It's very sort of very, very progressive, very ethnically diverse, a bit of a hippy-dippy kind of part of London. It's the representative or the incumbent MP is one Jeremy Corbyn, who people may remember. He is a very left-wing, radical socialist, former leader of the Labour Party. Got thrown out because anti-Semitism was the reason, but there's a lot of other reasons as well, apart from losing an election so bad he should have been put into the stratosphere. I mean, Boris Johnson, for God's sake. But anyway, he got chucked out of the Labour Party, so he's running as an independent because he is a very well-known MP for his local area, and most of the Labour activists there wanted him to be the MP. So he's essentially running against his old party to say, right, fuck you, I'm still going to represent Islington North, I'm going to shout for him from the backbenches. The big models, so they use these things called MRP, which is like multiple regression and post-stratification. It's this really, it's like, I couldn't explain it even if you showed me a flipping instruction manual, because it's just so, it's
Welcome
stats.
to AI
I wasn't good
graphs.
at stats.
Welcome to AI stuff.
It's not AI, it's just really complicated Excel spreadsheets.
It is AI, but it's AI in the way it's implemented at the moment, not AI as in we all think it's an actual intelligence. It's not intelligent. It's very large amounts of algebra and matrices and shit like that.
I mean, technically, any algorithm that responds to input is a artificial intelligence, but that's another story.
There's so much.
But yeah, the MRP models, and there are other types of models, but these models don't pick up little things. So like, they're not going to be too good. They've tried to make adjustments because Farage, for example, Nigel Farage, leader of the Reform Party, formerly of the Brexit Party, formerly of UKIP, formerly of the Conservative Party. That guy's been around. He's been around even more than me. But anyway, but the point is, he's a leader of Reform. He's odds on to win the constituency where he's challenging in Clacton against the Conservative incumbent Giles Watling. See, know these things off the top of my head. But the models, they've had to change the models to reflect his local support, because unless you implement a very specific one-for-one constituency, you won't pick it up. Like Rochdale. So Rochdale was one of the last by-elections before this election, and that is like deep red Labour normally. George Galloway won it, and George Galloway is like very left-wing socialist firebrand. Once pretended to be a cat on Celebrity Big Brother. A lot of Brits might remember that. Bit weird, but he's got a really distinctive hat. And he's got a very deep, sort of angry Scottish voice. You know, he's like very.
What was his name again?
George Galloway. He's funnily enough, the party ball. You know, I drew a load of party balls for my stupid video.
I recognize the picture. That's all I can tell you about him.
It's on the thumbnail for my video. I put the Workers' Party ball with. It was just the party ball was that with the hat because he's the main guy for them. I didn't do the Workers' Party section because A, I ran out of time. B, they're only running in 152 constituencies, so that's not even a third. It's not even a quarter of the constituencies actually. And C, you know, it was like it's a one-guy train. It'd be like doing a section on Jeremy Corbyn. It wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. So yeah. But anyway, he's challenging Rochdale. But they've got no idea how they think Labour are going to take that seat back because because they had to disown their candidate last time because their previous candidate wasn't a very pleasant person, as it turned out. They didn't vet him properly. That's happened to a lot of parties. Like the Greens have had to basically disown about 20 of their candidates because of anti-Semitism. The Reform Party have got a load of fruitcakes that keep getting picked up in media, although there's some controversy over the famous one where there was one guy who just turned up and apparently was a canvasser for them, but apparently is an actual actor and has done like various. There's some very dodgy. The main thing that made main one that made the news. There's some evidence that it might have been a setup, which is like, you know, you can get reform on the racism thing anyway. You don't need to make it up. No, like, come on. Like, I mean, you know, well, I'd say you can get them on the racism thing. Like, a lot of your viewers are going to really be angry with me. I don't think Farage is a particularly racist person. I think he's old
an
school. He's an arsehole. Yeah, that's what.
He is an arsehole. He's probably racist too.
Depends on your definition of racism.
But good at hiding it.
He's more of your inappropriate uncle level of racism. He probably doesn't care if you're brown or Muslim or gay. He's probably just too old to give a shit. He's 60, so he doesn't give a shit. And because he's not from a sort of a more socially liberal background. You know, somebody like Keir Starmer, for example, whose political journey is obviously another one. He was very left wing when he was younger. He's moved to the centre now because he's basically a lawyer. But you know, it's it's the thing is, you are going to have a percentage of people who agree with that kind of level of racism that was displayed by these candidates. You know, whether it's the anti-Semitism from Greens and Labour and other party members, or whether it's the out and out, xenophobia that you see with various Reform or Conservative candidates. That sort of stuff exists everywhere. And you have to account for it in sort of social considerations. Don't just think that one person wearing a coloured rosette says a bad thing. Everybody on that team is a bad thing. I mean, look at English football. You're going to have a minority of fans who are absolute dickheads. Most England fans just want to go to the game, say some bad chants about the Germans, and get drunk and enjoy the football.
Why is it always
don't
the
hate
Germans?
People. Well, it's 2 world wars and 1 World Cup. It's yeah.
Forget about that. Yeah, it's all like. Yeah, it's always, with a lot of this, it's always the loud minority that fuck it up for the quiet majority in a lot of things, and it's. But the problem is as well, like with the social media situation we have as well, it doesn't take much for them to become the loudest voice that everyone's listening to.
I mean, I know I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but I think the section in my video that I did on Reform UK, which was really a section on Nigel Farage, because he is the driving force behind that party, and he owns the party. It's a complicated party to look at in an ownership level. Yeah. But I think I explained it really well. Like I genuinely left in the second or two where I'm just thinking, like, how the hell am I going to phrase this? Because it's so like he represents a constituency, pun intended, of the British public who are just sick of the modern era. Yeah. And not everybody is enjoying this beautiful rainbow-colored train that we're on that is going to some very strange parts of the universe. And it's the reason, like, one of the reasons why Brexit happened is because I remember a lot of discourse that happened in the run-up to the referendum, where basically from the progressive or the pro-Remain side was, if you vote for Brexit, you're racist. But if you say that to a British person, a lot of them will turn around and go, well, maybe I am racist, and they'll tick the leave box. Because people don't like being told something.
They'll take the bet. Well,
it's British, not even that.
We'll bait you into it, even if we don't believe it. We're British. You don't don't try and get a Brit. Don't warn a Brit about being sarcastic at American airports, because we're going to. If you warn us not to, we will be.
I'm always very well behaved at airports because I know it's very serious.
Yeah,
there,
but it's still like you can't make the same. Like, ironically enough, you can't make the same jokes going through an American airport as you can in a French or German airport.
No,
because
or an Aussie one.
They know. Yeah, they know. It's like, oh, you're British. Okay, fine. Well, I can put that filter on, and we're good.
Well, we are British, and to any of your American viewers, happy Independence Day. Sorry we can't be there at the party. We're a little distracted at the moment. But to be fair, when you have your election in 4 months' time, we're going to be doing some fireworks for you. And we'll just pretend they're for you. Because their presidential election is on Guy Fawkes Day. So what the hell are we doing? Like, are we just swapping notes? Like, yeah. Let's save on expenses.
I actually noticed that. Oh, Guy Fawkes Day. Jesus.
Yeah, I've already booked the 6th of November off. So I hope that you've all the viewers of sort of, I don't think you'll have learned anything, but I think you'll have enjoyed this little ride.
Expanded your horizon slightly, possibly.
In less than Imaginary Watch again, in less than an hour, we will have the exit poll from BBC, Sky, and ITV telling us roughly how many seats each party's going to win. If Labour get below 400, it's actually a really bad performance from them. But if the Conservatives get more than 100, they're going to be super relieved. But there are big changes coming to Britain generally. Yeah. But it starts in Westminster. It's where the seat of power is. It's where all the big decisions are made. And frankly, today is the day we get the real opportunity in the UK to complain. Because if you complain about politicians and the way things are run, and then that little offer of power that they give you, the one day in every 4 or 5 years you get to put an X next to someone's name and say what you really think of them. If you ignore that part, then what's the point of living in a democracy? Honestly, Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe I like the Aussie system. In Australia, they have compulsory voting. It's a nominal fine if you don't, but it really encourages people to get involved in politics.
That's interesting,
if you've got to do something, you might learn something about it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think the biggest thing I always find is education about what's going on, because I get all like I did look at every leaflet that came through my door. So I had I had conservative. I had some random what?
I've got about 15 of them.
Yeah,
carry on.
I think I had conservative, and it just sort of went, oh, it's conservative. I had a local one that I looked at and went, oh, okay. I had one that I looked at and I went, why are you using a Gmail address? And then but the other thing I did look at is, who are they trying to slag off?
Yes.
And every single one, apart from the Labour one, was slagging off Labour. And Labour just said, we're going to try and do the best. And I was like, well done for not actually being cunts.
You said the C word. I just looked. I know which
I looked at
from conversations. Sorry, Tom. From conversations outside of this podcast, I know which constituency you're in, and I think I understand the nature of it. Because if I was to put money on it, your constituency will remain and strengthen as a Labour constituency.
Yeah,
and it's basically the usual suspects. You've got Workers' Party candidate because you've probably got a relatively because Workers' Party are strong in areas of the north.
Yeah,
and you've got one sort of local issue candidate as well.
Yeah,
and they know the Labour guy is probably gonna win. So their mission basically is to get as much attention for their cause as possible, because there's no point in them all fighting with each other, because they know the one guy is going to win. And that's, again, it's the quirks of first past the post. Here, 1 second.
Here it goes.
I've got 10 more hours of this shit.
Let's go.
Here, the constituency is like a dead heat between Labour and Plaid Cymru, the Welsh nationalist as described earlier. Conservative incumbent, she's not going to win. It's her party's not popular enough. But the Labour candidate leaflets are like, Plaid Cymru is stupid, don't vote for them. Conservatives stink, stinky poo conservative. Plaid Cymru are like, Labour aren't going to win here, we're going to win, we're best, we're Welsh, woo woo woo, also conservatives suck. So they're both agreeing on the conservatives sucking, but they also think each other suck. And the conservatives are like, we're great, don't let Labour ruin everything. What, there's nationalists here as well? Shit, change the literature. So
put a sticker over the Labour bit to say
so I've had those. The Green Party is basically just generic picture of local candidates. Please vote for Plaid Werth, which is Welsh for the Green Party. We're better than the other two stinky main parties plus the stinky nationalists. I also got a libertarian leaflet, and I'm not even going to go into. I didn't even properly look at that one because it's like, whatever, mate. Because it's like I respect that. I respect that political belief, but it's like, I couldn't vote for a low energy independent candidate. It's just one crappy leaflet. I've not seen, like, have you what are your policies? Like, oh, you're going to lower taxes and reduce government spending. You haven't explained how you're going to do it. And then there was also reform were quite funny, because this is a thing apparently in most of the constituency area. It's literally a picture of the two leaders of reform, so Richard Tice and Nigel Farage, a mail merged box at the top with candidate name and constituency, because they're too fucking lazy to take a picture of the candidate. And then there's a translated version on the back, because in Wales you can print election literature in English and Welsh, but you don't have to. But most parties know that if you don't, people kind of frown on it, because even if you aren't a Welsh speaker, you're like, well, hang on, are you really representing Wales?
Us? Yeah, do you care about us?
Like Anglesey is majority Welsh speaking. Like, when I used to work in an office actually. We're not completely overwhelmed yet, but it's one of the last strong. Again, my video explains all of this, but yeah. Anyway, we've hit 9:15, so I think I've kind of overrun, but I'm not too panicky. I think at the end of the day, you live in a democracy. Here's your chance to make a small difference to the way that your world is run. Just do it. Like, and if you don't do it this time, make sure you're registered next time. There's local elections. If you live in Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland, you'll have your local parliament. You've got police and crime commissioners, local mayors. There's all sorts of ways that you can have your say. And if you live in a system that responds to your desires in an imperfect but true way, I think. And if you remember that, maybe you'll get on with the world a little better.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves and each other. Bit of Jerry Springer at the end.
I was going to say, my view on it basically is vote, and if you don't vote, shut up.
Stop complaining. Yeah. I don't think we could agree any more on that,
Like,
TV.
I will disagree with you on your vote, but that's different to you didn't vote, shut up.
If you're not a fan of football, why are you complaining about Jude Bellingham's celebration?
No.
Yeah.
I don't watch football. Anyway, right, yeah. I think it's shout out time because you're due to start your own stream in 15.
I have about 13 minutes left, yeah. So
that's Cades. Why is that Cades still on there? There you go. Diz!
Diz. I do have a Twitter as well. I don't use it much, but I do have a Twitter at Michael Disley because I got in before all the smelly spammers got it.
I did remove it because Twitter's kind of a hellhole right now.
I do now have a YouTube channel, or I had a YouTube channel for many years. I have a video on there. If even in the aftermath you want to watch a 26-minute sleep-deprived rant about the political parties and system of the UK, have a watch of it. It's quite a good video according to all my friends because they're biased, but it was fun to make and it's got country balls in it, so give it a look. Also, I do stream on Twitch. I haven't done it for the last few months, but I will be going live at roughly 9:30 tonight. I will be changing out of this very sweaty grey t-shirt. Grey Diz is now a character in the Disley cinematic universe, by the way. But yeah, I'll be wearing a suit. I'll be hopefully joined by a couple of my mates. I'm going to try and fiddle with this video thing rather than just screen capture Discord. And come and join me. And of course, be groovy and remember to vote. And Droid asks, will I be trucking? Not tonight, unfortunately. No, I've got my hat here, but it got too sweaty, which is why I cut it off. Thank you, CB, for inviting me on. I'm sorry that we couldn't get your friends on. I can understand my trepidations with it being a very political conversation. I think we kept it mostly clean and mostly unbiased, at least on my end. But yeah, we tried our best.
Yeah. I'll just do
Bring me in again in November for the American one.
Oh, God. We might actually get the others on for this. Anyway, I'll do a quick shout out to myself as well. I'm TBSliver. I seem to be running this random jaunt across the political spectrum today. Normally joined by Cades and Sarin, who are, they've stepped back for various reasons. I'll be live again tomorrow night with some Monster Hunter World and various less political things. There may be some political swearing in there, but it's not my wheelhouse, as you can probably tell by Diz holding 90% of the conversation tonight.
Sorry,
it's fine, absolutely fine. Find me over on twitch.tv/TBSliver if you want to escape the the political fallout is probably the correct word. Tomorrow I'll be live Monster Hunter World for a oh god, what are we working on? It's the bingo, a variation of Monster Hunter World bingo that Cade has been working on. So that should be interesting. Come join, find out, and apart from that, I think you're trying to leg it off in the next minute or two. So I think we'll cut this bit short. Any last remarks? I think we had them just before.
Be happy that you live in a system that does respond to your wants and needs, because you could live in a system where literally no one cares, and you're just a number.
I'm not a number. I am a free man.
A free
and on
man.
That note,
yeah.
I will say, ta-ra. Catch you all next time.
Cheerio, guys.